Hello and welcome to Beginners Python and Machine Learning. My name is Tim Cummings. Tonight we're going to be looking at how to implement auth and using Google authentication in our Django app that we've written over the last couple of sessions. So this will mean that we won't need to store passwords in our database. We can just rely on Google to do the authentication of the user and then let us know that user is authenticated, and we can then make decisions based on that, who that user is. So I encourage you to ask questions during the session for people who are watching live, and you can ask questions over YouTube chat, live chat, and also over the Slack in beginnerspython.slack.com, and also inside that it's the channel Learning to Code, which I'll be looking at. So that's the one that's currently up here. Okay, now we've been writing this app, but I'm going to start from scratch and clone it out of a Git repository so that we don't have to go over everything before, and someone who's brand new will be able to just jump straight into where we were up to. So the script that we're going to follow, there's a link. This is the meetup page, but also below the YouTube video that you're currently watching, you'll see a link to this GitHub script that I've got here, and that's got the references. It shows which what we're going to clone. Okay, now we're going to do this in PyCharm Community Edition, which is just a free Java Python development environment from JetBrains, and so that's what I recommend to use, but you can also do it in VS Code if you want. Okay, so the first step is we're going to get it from VCS. Now actually I've written a little script here to get us going. This will get us up to the point where we've picked up the last 2 weeks and of coding, and the app will be all ready for us to go. So I'll try copying and pasting that into Slack. And I'll try it in YouTube as well. It's got a link in there, so it may not go to the YouTube one. And in fact, it's all looking rather... So what I'll do, I'll just do the last line to YouTube, which is a script, and that just tells you which lines inside the README in the project, these lines of the script are that you have to do. Alright, so we're going to do get from VCS first, so we're cloning that site. So you can watch me in PyCharm. So click on, this is what it opens when no project is open. If you've got a project open, you can just go to the file menu and say close project, and you'll see this screen. And then we'll say get from VCS, and we put in our URL. And we could do this from the command line. In fact, that's the command line to do it, git clone and that. But let's put this in, and I'm going to create a new folder called BPML 206-3, this is part 3, and we'll click on clone. I'm going to trust the project because I wrote it, so I know it's okay. Okay. And this is what it looks like when we come into PyCharm, and here's the README. It's got everything in, so you can see we've just done line 15, git clone the site. Now we're going to, and if you're doing this from the command line, you then have to change directory into this directory, but we don't have to do that because we're not on the command line. We're now going to check out step 10, which will have all the steps previously done. for us, so we don't have to retype those. So if you click down here in the bottom left, you can see all the steps that are on the remote server. So we'll just pick the one we want, step 10, and check that out. And what's usually a good idea once you've done that is to make a branch for yourself. So let's say we'll have a new branch. Let's go my local branch. And then if you accidentally commit stuff, you're just committing it to your own branch. It's not a big issue because you haven't got permissions to commit it to the central repository anyway. But it's just a good practice to get into when you're working with repositories, especially with other people working in the same repository. Alright, so we've checked out the branch, we've created our own local branch. Now we need to create a new virtual environment. So if we look down here in the bottom right hand corner, it says no interpreter. So I can click on that and choose an interpreter, or I can go up here to the file menu and settings. So on Mac I think they might be called preferences. So we'll go into settings, down to the project that's here, and let's click on Python interpreter. This is the command line alternative to what I'm doing here. Alright, we could use one of the existing ones, but I'm going to create a new one because if someone's just new, they won't have any interpreter already set up, any virtual environment. Now you see over here on the left we've got virtual environment. That's your standard one for Python users. Conda environment, that's for people who've used Anaconda. Don't ever use system interpreter. And then you've got pipenv and poetry. They're a bit more advanced, so we won't bother with them. And really you don't need to. I have never needed to use those. Okay, so that's going to create a virtual environment called .venv, and it's going to be based on Python 3.12. Okay, so I'll just click OK to that. So that's created the environment. It'll activate it for us. It tells us immediately that pip is not the latest version. So I can just click on pip and say, yep, upgrade that one. And so it'll upgrade it from 23.2.1 to 24.2. And that's upgrading. I can see the progress wheel there. Successfully upgraded, so I'll click OK. And now if I look down in the bottom right hand side, I'll see Django BPML site number 4 because I've done it 4 times, so you won't see the number 4 on your system. Okay. Now we're going to install the third-party libraries, which is step 24 of our script. So if I go back to our script and go to line 24, pip install Django all-auth social account. And really there's only one. If we just install that one library, it has dependencies on all the other libraries that we need. So that's a fairly easy way in this case. Otherwise you would do something like pip install -r requirements.txt, and we have got a requirements.txt file that we created later, but created before, so you could do that as well. Now I'm going to go into a terminal here. So if you look down the bottom left hand corner, I can bring up a local shell, and this is in Windows PowerShell, but it'll also work in Mac Bash or Z Shell or any of those. So I'm going to paste pip install Django -all-auth social account, and this will actually give me all the latest of these libraries, which may be a bit later than what's in requirements.txt. So that'll be exciting. See what we get, and you can see all the dependencies that it's installing. It's installing Django as a dependency, JSON web tokens, the auth library as part of requests, all the certificates. Okay, That all worked. Okay. And it's finished. Now let's go to line 140. And remember, we had to create a database. So Django comes with a script, manage.py, and you can see it just here that got installed, and I've actually saved this into our GitHub repository. Manage.py, so it's a very simple script, and you can see I've put here git users do this also. So this is for people who are git users, will jump across all the steps, but there's some you can't skip, like creating the database, because the database isn't stored in the repository. But we can copy that and paste it down here, and that will look at our data structure that we need. It'll look at the admin app data structure, and it'll also look at social account data structure, and it will create the database, and there it is. It's an SQLite database, db.sqlite3. So you can see that's done that and applied all the migrations, and so brought the database up so we can now use it. And the first thing we want to do is create a super user, which is line 142. So I'll put in my name. I'll put in an email address, because we're actually going to use email addresses as our user IDs. And we'll put in a password. I have to do it again, and if you try putting in a short one, it'll ask you for a longer one. So that's why I'm having to put a longer one in. Okay, so we've created our super user. Now we can let's see. Now we can run the app. So there's several ways to run it. We can go to this address in a browser. So let's bring up Chrome, and now I've actually bookmarked these links. So this one here, yes. So first of all, we actually have to run the app, and I put that in the instructions there. Run the app. We have to run python manage.py run server. So we'll run that in PyCharm. And once it's running, it actually does a really good job of just updating. Whenever we make changes to the app, it'll just reload those changes, and we don't even need to stop and start it. Okay, so that's just a couple of URLs we put in. We can go to the list of events, and there's no events have been scheduled. We're not signed in. And so the other thing we can do is we can go to the admin app and put in our username and password for our super user that we created just before. So this script here, we finished the script. We're now up to where we were at the end of part 2 last time. So I'm just going to close that. And we can have this running at the same time as PyCharm. So a login, it's a pretty much an empty database. We did create a user, and there's our user that we've created. I'm going to put a bit more information in. Meetup name is Pythonator. Okay, so this username, email address, they were created when I create super user. But and now we've put in a few more details. Okay, now the other thing that you'll notice is no events have been scheduled. So remember last time we went to, I created this link here for an event, and it's giving us a 404 because we've now created a brand new database. That event's not in our new database. So let's go back and create that. And we've got an events thing here. This is the admin app that just comes with Django. We get it for free. So let's do one for the 30th of October. And I like my code to be that for just based on the date. Let's make this a bit wider. 30th of October, 5:30, and it's going to be, I think I'll do how to do packaging to wheels at AWS. Hot stuff. All right. There's our event. So now, if we look at our list of events, we've got an event coming up, and we can click on that event and see more details about it. Now you see it's actually recognized that I'm logged in, and so it's showing my name and email address up here so that I can see that I'm logged in. I think, did we do this update member details? There we go. I can, as a user, I can change my name here. So, you know, I want to call myself Pythonator Dev and update that. So that's our app that we had running. So now our task today is to change the sign-in to stop using that login, using the admin login, because we're not going to create users ahead of time who want to use this app. It could be anyone who's joined our group. So we want it to work when they just authenticate with Google, and then we'll be able to use it. So let's continue on from where we were, which was about 600. OAuth 628, line 628. Okay, now we're going to, I've given a link here to the developers site where there's some documentation on how to do this, but I've also given you a link that'll go straight into the developer section where you need to do this. So let's use that link at console.developers.google.com. And what we needed credentials are client ID and client secret. Okay, that just tells us what we need. So the steps are: select a project or create a new one. So I'm going to create a new one. So I'll click, this is our project up here. I've currently selected one called BPAML 177, and I'm going to create one called BPAML 206. So I'll click on new project. Okay, and Google gives you a few for free, so let's create one called BPML 206, and no organization, because we're just doing that with our individual Google account, not with an organization type account. That's creating the project. And then we need, inside the project, we need to configure the OAuth consent screen. So let's select that. So the OAuth consent screen is what the user is going to see when they click on sign in with Google, and it's going to give them some information about the app that they're signing in, and when they make a decision of are they going to allow that app to see these details. So I'll click on OAuth consent screen, and let's start. User type is going to be external. So if you are in an organization using Google Workspace, you might want to just have an internal app that only allows people in your organization to it to log in, but we don't even have an organization, so we have to be external. And click on create. Okay, we have to give it an app name, and this here shows what is going to be shown to the user. So they're going to see BPAML. Let's use our support email. Now you'd be doing this with your Google account, not mine. You can't get into pythonadadev@gmail.com, so you'd have to put your Gmail account there. You could upload a logo if you want. That would always look very professional. You can add some things like links to your privacy policy and your terms of service, a homepage link, but they're all optional. User support homepage. Well, let's put one in. I don't actually have a privacy policy, so I can't set that up. Missing domain, so we have to add a domain. Okay, I think I can add that. I'm just thinking if I needed to add local hosts, because that's what we're doing, but I don't think we need to. And this one we can just put in pythonadadev. Which is going to be your email address. Okay, we've done the OAuth consent screen. Now we have to set up the scopes. We're going to use these 3 scopes here, and that basically says what information we want to get from Google. And really we just need their email address, and a little bit about their name would be useful, so that's just in the profile. And this OpenID is required because that's what links it to them. And because we're just getting this really simple data, these are non-sensitive scopes, then it frees up quite a lot the permissions. So there's no limits, it's all free to use if they're the only 3 that we want. If you want to get more detailed data, then Google will start to put limits on how many people you can have doing it. You have to pre-register who those people are, or you have to pay money to Google. Alright, now there's normally a lot more here. If they don't come up, you could type their names up here and enter property name or value. For me, they've come up, and that's probably because I've done this before. So I can easily select them, but if they don't, just try filtering. There's quite a lot, or you can even just paste the scopes into here that I've listed. So you could just comma separate them. Well, they're already comma separated, just copy and paste that into manually add scopes. And then I'll click update, and there it is, my non-sensitive scopes. And I could delete them if I wanted, but they're the 3 basic ones that you would normally use. And we're not doing any sensitive scopes or restricted scopes. Test users. Now, because of those scopes are the very basic ones, we don't even have to put test users in. It'll just allow any user to use it. So we can just save and continue there. And that's the summary of it all. We can head back to the dashboard. Alright. So we've created we've done the OAuth consent screen. Now we have to create the credentials. So this is something that our app can use to identify itself with Google. So we'll go into the credentials section here, and we're going to click on create credentials. We want an OAuth client ID, and application type is going to be a web application. It's a Django web application. We give it a name, so I'm going to call it BPA-mail event. You could use the same name here if you want, and then we're going to authorize some JavaScript origins. So let's add a URI, and what these are, there's going to be JavaScript on the web page that we generate. That JavaScript will call Google, and then Google will come back with the results using a callback, and then we'll redirect to a new page. So I've got here authorized JavaScript origin is localhost. Probably should be actually I'm going to use 127.0.0.1 here. And the redirect URL is going to be this one. So this is the website that we're on, which is just on our local computer. So if you were putting this on a server, you'd have to set up these credentials so that they worked on your server host name, and you wouldn't have the port 8000 in it, because you'd be running it you'd have what actual port you're running that on. And then the authorized redirect URL, so it's going to call back to our app. And if you remember the structure of the URLs, the first section of the URL here is in a Django website, tells you which app it's going to be using, and because it's calling accounts, that's going to go to the auth third-party library that we've added into Django, and it's then got some different areas. It's for the Google callbacks, it's going to have Google. If you were doing this through Microsoft, you'd have a Microsoft in there, and login callback. So let's create these credentials, and it's created some highly secret, which I'm now showing you on the screen. So I'm going to delete this straight after I've done the video, so you won't be able to use them. But I've downloaded them. Okay, so that's got the secrets in there. Let's go and find it. I'm going to rename it to just client secret.json. Okay, I think it's got a JSON on the end. And we're going to cut it from here, and we'll stick it in our folder, part 3, and paste it in there. So there's our client secret.json in our Django BPA-ML site. Alright, so if we go back into PyCharm and look in our files, we should see our client secret there, and there it is. So quite a long line. Yep. So what do we do with that? Oh, okay, so one thing that's important about this client secret is you don't ever want to commit it to Git. So that's just a security thing. You try not to put any secrets or passwords into your Git source code repository, because once they get in there, it's very hard to delete the history. Okay, there's some more. You can read this quick start from auth to read what we're doing, but otherwise just follow these instructions. Okay, now we're going to add the following into settings.py into Django PAML site. So remember, site is the whole site, event is our app in the site, and so site's got a settings file, and these are things that we're going to say. So we're now saying the authentication method is going to be by email rather than by username, and so the email is required, and we're not going to verify it, but we want when we're using social account, which comes with all auth, to auto connect to it. And once it's logged in, it'll redirect to BPAML event, and similarly when we log out. So let's put all those settings into settings.py, and I'll just put it straight at the bottom. Alright, I'm getting a message up here saying these package requirements aren't installed, and that's probably because we've got later versions there, so I'm just going to ignore these requirements for now. So this is a new thing that PyCharm's doing. It's actually recognizing in somewhere, maybe it's in requirements, it's recognizing that we haven't got the latest. So let's ignore those requirements. Okay, so if you remember, we had a button that said sign in, and we want to change that to say sign in with Google. So that was set up in our base.html because that means that it was available on every page that we tried to go to. We'd have a sign in button if we wanted to actually see more. And we've created the URL, so A is a hyperlink, and the href in it is created by Django. It uses this function, provide a login URL, which is actually part of all auth, and we pass in a parameter to say we want the Google one rather than the Microsoft one, or whichever other federated service we're using. So let's go into base.html. It's in our templates, and there it is. And here's the hyperlink. So it's in the cell that says not logged in, and then we give an option to sign in with Google. So let's just paste that in there, and so now it'll calculate a new login URL using all auth rather than just using the admin app, and it'll go to Google for that. Alright, so see if that works. So we'll go back to our app in our browser. There's our app. We're signed in, so we're already, so we don't see the sign in button. So let's sign out, and we'll say, yep, we want to sign out. And now we've got the button sign in with Google. And if you look at it, the URL down the bottom is going to take us to account/google/login. So that's accounts is being handled by the all auth app, and it's doing the Google version of login. So let's click on it and see what it does for us. It's taken us to this page. The styling's not very good, but it's pretty bland, but at least it's functional. You're about to sign in using a third-party account from Google. So we'll click on continue, and Google will take us to here, and we can choose an account. So let's choose Pythonator Dev and sign in to BPAML. So remember when we set our OAuth consent screen, we did that. It's giving us a that's actually our name. Let's go back in there again to continue to be well. That's who we're signing in as. There's the privacy link, which is not going anywhere useful. It's just going to Google because we didn't set those values. And Google's going to share name, email address, language preference, and profile picture. Okay, well, if we're happy with that, we can click continue. And now we're in, and it's worked out who we are. Pythonator dev hasn't done anything really because that account already existed. So let's try this again using a different account. And we'll sign in with Google on that one. Looks the same. Continue. And I'll use my other Gmail account. Sign in and continue. Okay, so it's added me as a user. This time I've got Tim Cummings as the name. Hasn't got any name on Meetup. I can update that. And I can say I'm going to be attending this one. And now, so I'm a non-administrator, a non-super user. I'm just a normal user here, so I can see Meetup name, and I'm attending, and I just be able to see the Meetup names of the other people, which I could see on the Meetup site anyway. So that I haven't given away any extra information that people couldn't get elsewhere. However, if I go into as the super user and go into that event, I get more information. I get their email address of the person, their name in this system, which is normally come from Google, and the Meetup name as before. I can add my, this current user in just to test. It works with 2 users in our attendee list, so now we've got 2 people attending our event. Okay. Any questions so far? Right, now one of the problems that we noticed was the sign in and sign out pages had just a very plain style. So we're going to override the style that's provided by auth. And so it's very interesting the way we do that. If you look in our virtual environment in lib, in site packages, you can see there's auth, and in here, if I can remember where, in templates, auth layouts, there's base.html, and this is what the sign in and sign out pages will be based on. So it's pretty basic, but what we're going to do is we're going to override that, and this is where the beauty of the folder structure that Django uses is. So in our templates folder, anything we put in here is one of our templates, but we can also create another folder for other apps that are running on the same site that we want to override. So we're going to create a folder in there. So I'll say new directory called auth. And in that one, we'll create a new folder called layout to match what was in the virtual environment in the installed libraries that we saw. And in there, we'll create our HTML template, which will be called base.html. And yep, we can add that to Git. So this code here is mainly copied from what's in the original that we're overriding, and I've just added in what I'm extending now is I'm extending our base rather than the auth base, and so it gets the styling from auth. Sorry, from our stuff. Okay, what's this one? That's the one we looked at before. This is the one we want to override. And now we'll go back to our app and check out our sign out page and our sign in page. So if I say sign out, now it looks a lot better. It's got the same styling for the top navigation bar. It's got a navigation bar if we want to actually go somewhere else without signing out. That's taken us to the admin app because we're an administrator. If I go to log out there, that's logged me out using admin app. So let's sign in with Google. That's looking good. Continue for that. And now if I click on sign out, that's looking good as well. And I can sign out. So that's really all the content for tonight. It wasn't that hard, really. It's Auth has done an amazing job of simplifying adding Google Auth, because it's quite tricky if you try to do that yourself. But that worked quite easily. I didn't get any questions, but I hope you've enjoyed it. The next couple of weeks will be more machine learning by Arun, and then the week after that we'll have our in-person event at Amazon Web Services in Brisbane City. So I look forward to seeing you all there. So you can register now for that. And we're actually not using the registration app anymore because it turns out it's just easy enough for Amazon to create the name cards where we get there. Once we start getting over 80 people, then they'll probably ask us to start using the registration app, so it's sitting there waiting to be used. I hope you learned something from that, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.